Project Moon is no stranger to its fair share of hated and beloved characters. This ranges from the niche enough fan favourites like Angelica or Walter or even the Kane office, to characters and more specifically fights that make people's blood unanimously boil, like Apocalypse Bird, Pluto and so on. But there is one character that I believe is so in the middle of this spectrum that he deserves to be broken down and studied, and that character is Philip. But I'm not talking about him today. No, today we will talk about his spiritual successor, Hopkins. A man who appears for all of 30 minutes, leaves, and has forever earned the ire of the Limbus Company community. But why exactly? Well, that's what I'm here to find out tonight. Let's take a step back to Canto 1 and study just what is it that makes Hopkins Limbus Company's most controversial character. So let's begin simple, by laying out the three major reasons I found that people hate Hopkins for. And we'll go through them, mention them, and most importantly, remember them as we examine all the scenes he appears in. Firstly, people hate that Hopkins ran away, and they cite him as a coward. Secondly, people say he's an unnecessary asshole. And lastly, people blame him for the death of Aya and Yuri. These seem to be the main reasons people give as to hate the character, but I see room for debate in all of them, so we'll go through the brief screen time he has, scene by scene, and break him down. But first, if you go on to enjoy the video, please consider subscribing. I make basically exclusively Project Moon videos, so if you enjoyed this, I have a few more like it on the way. By the time of me writing this script, we've just reached 8,000 subscribers, which I am infinitely grateful for. And I look forward to making much more better content in the future, like this, which was a passion project of mine that I was planning to do for a while now. Also, channel memberships are now available, so if you want to help support the channel in any way, you can join as a member for as little as $1 a month. You'll get access to a little badge beside your name and exclusive emojis, and as well as that, your name will be put in all of my videos going forward. Special thank you to DocCCC for being my only current member, but if you'd like to join him, the join button should be right beside my username below the video. Even if you don't become a member, your view still means a lot, so thank you. That's enough self-promotion. Let's get back to Hopkins. Okay, story time. We first meet Hopkins and Aya in the best Canto, in Canto 1, and specifically in the mission 1-9. Inside the pre-battle cutscene we meet the two fixers, and at first, Aya greets the team, being the wholesome bundle of joy that she is, and Hopkins just fanboys over the red gaze, which, when Don does it, apparently it's cute, but when Hopkins does it, apparently it's a crime? This is literally the flirting versus harassment meme. Make a quick note of this. Virgilius mentions that these fixers have been around a bit. Count on them to handle complications. Now, this is directly telling us that Hopkins and Aya both have a fair bit of experience in the field, and they know what to expect. In the post-battle cutscene, Hopkins bends over backwards for Virgil once more, and Aya is cute again before 1-9 ends. Now, we come to 1-10, where Virgil pulls Dante to the side and tells him that Aya and Hopkins are only grade 8 fixers, meaning that, despite their appearance, they're still weak, and errands are their main tasks, not assassinations. Also, kind of off topic for the video, but I want to point out that Virgilius literally says you can't rely on them, and then right after, Dante feels the need to say, oh, I can't count on them to do everything for us. Like, what was actually the point to this line, that Dante needs a fucking hearing test? 1-11 comes, and they enter the facility. Straight away, Faust warns Dante that he can't resuscitate down here, to which Hopkins is audibly confused, and Aya writes it off as a joke. So we now know that they were never told of the Sinner's ability beforehand. Once again, this will come up later. But for now, after fighting a few abnos, Yuri says that she's never seen these before, to which Hopkins tears into her for. This brings up point 2. Now, while I do agree that he was being a needless asshole in his complaining, Hopkins is kinda right. He literally says that her two jobs were to, quote, lead the way and tell us how to deal with these abnormal ladies. So, what is he meant to do? And oh no, I've never seen those before. So, he's right that Yuri isn't capable of doing one of her jobs. But he's equally as wrong for tearing into her so hard. Since, as Faust says literally right after, Yuri has never seen these types before, meaning that she obviously wouldn't know how to fight them. But then it's completely invalidated since Heath and Mirasol spit cold hard facts. Can I get an amen for our base ID, boys? You know, maybe you're right. Maybe he is hungry. You know, I've heard they make mean donuts in the lower floors. Moving further down, Hopkins mocks the group yet again, calling them the Red Gaze's minions. To which Ryoshu takes offense, but is he wrong? Aya apologizes in his stead, roasts him, and as he gets up, Dante spots something in his pockets, but decides not to point it out. Keep this line in mind for later. Well, nonetheless, Dante revives the Sinners after a rough fight, and this amazes Aya and Hopkins, the latter of whom believes it might be a singularity, to which he then stares at Dante greedily. I mean, hey, right? Imagine a group like the She with that. Their only weakness is that they're overworked, so having a refresh all button would make use in colour material for sure. Also, imagine the moolah Hopkins could have made. After this short exchange though, Dante looks at his stuffed pockets yet again and still says nothing. But this is interrupted by some cheeky foreshadowing 15 seconds in advance. And Aya is aced. Side note, I fucking love this image of Aya dead but smiling and Otis' default facial expression. This is official, but it looks like a shitpost, it's great. Anyways, Hopkins does not care that Aya is dead at all, and is instead more focused on Otis being able to understand Dante's ticking. Which is very fair because, you know, it's not a normal thing that people can speak clock. But this exchange is just him being an asshole, and I cannot and will not defend this. The second cutest character in the game just died, and all you can focus on is the glorified exposition dumper. For shame! Way further down, we reach the final cutscene with Hopkins, and his most controversial one by far. He puts on a gas mask as he mentions that his office bought a tool the other day that measures toxin levels in facilities. The gas on this level is poisonous and can kill. Yuri asks, why is he doing this? And he snaps back with calling out how useless she is again. All the while brushing off Aya's death in a nonchalant way. But he does say one line in particular in this exchange. Everything is fair game for a fixer. I like this line. It's very city, and it perfectly humbles the Sinners in a way no one had before or since. Hopkins is proving to them that there's no room for your power of friendship bullshit, or even common decency, when your whole existence is spent doing odd jobs and assassinations for people too scared to get their own hands dirty. This is the tricks of the trade, and if you can't handle it, it's your own fault. Anyhow, he laments further, saying that he expected more from the Red Gaze's loonies, and then chews him out for having zero prep. And he is goddamn right. Are you trying to tell me that at literally no point did any of the 12 Sinners, plus Dante, Virgil, Yuri, and hell even Sharon, suggest that maybe, just maybe, there was a slight chance of poisonous gases in an abandoned facility deep underground that in its prime specialised in using chemicals to subdue creatures beyond human comprehension, some of which dangerous enough to end the city if they were let loose? Hopkins is goddamn right here, and there is no defence to be had for the Sinners. It is completely their own fault for not expecting the gas. But I'll give the benefit of the doubt here for 1 second and say that he did plan this all along, and the Sinners aren't really to blame for his betrayal. Then what about Aya, huh? Why didn't she warn any of the Sinners? Because she's in the exact same office as Hopkins, so chances are she definitely saw the machine or tool or whatever it is that measures toxin levels. You can't only pin this on Limbus. Oh fuck. You can't only pin this on Hopkins. You can't just blame it on one and not the other. Although Aya is dead, so it's not like it would have made much of a difference anyways. Regardless, my point here is that the Sinners keeling in the gas is not Hopkins' fault, it's their own. And it's really not fair that Hopkins is seen as a scapegoat in the community for what ultimately is just the Sinner's own subpar work. Hopkins then makes a runner for it with a fistful of enkephalin, and he even gives him the favour of a more honourable death in his report. And then just like that, he's gone. But not just gone, he's going to be stinking rich with all that enkephalin now. And who is to blame for any of what happened? Except for Dante. Dante could have foiled the entirety of Hopkins' plans by asking him to empty his pockets. Not once, but twice. All he had to do was call out his stuffed pockets, and if Hopkins declined, which he likely would have, his grade 8 ass would not have been able to stop Mere Assault from picking him up and shaking it out of his jacket. But because of Dante keeping his mouth shut for no discernible reason at all, Hopkins is now likely living it up comfy in some nest somewhere. And you know what? Good on the bastard, he earned it. He saw danger and he capitalised, pocketing as many resources as he could before leaving the unprepared slackers in the dust. And I seriously still cannot wrap my head around that. we had 2 supposed geniuses, 2 pretty wise guys, and an ex-LobCorp agent, and not one of them thought there'd be a Ghastly. It's so silly that people still pin this all on Hopkins. And on that same note, these 2's untimely deaths are not his fault. For some whack reason, people love to act like if Hopkins was a better person, they'd still be alive, when he literally had nothing to do with either of their deaths. He was an apathetic prick towards Aya, no doubt, but she got kakyoinged out of nowhere. How the hell is that his fault? And he was long gone before Yuri even got one of her 5 a day. But he wouldn't have changed a thing because he's literally a grade 8 weak ass. I think he'd actually would have been in more danger than Yuri was down there. Oh, and people love to compare Hopkins to Philip from Ruina because people boil them down to nothing but glorified escape artists. And I'll take any excuse to defend my golden boy, so here we go. No, they both run for a reason. Hopkins, as we just discussed, saw that there was literally no point with sticking with amateurs. So instead he pocketed some riches and ran for the hills, preserving his life in the process. And Philip ran away because he knew he didn't stand a chance. And he was really smart not to waste his life that his friends had just died so he could keep his. And he shouldn't be judged for it as hard as he is. I swear, for a series with such rich character writing, you'd expect the 2 most realistically written to be the fan favourites, but I guess not. Now, don't get me twisted. Hopkins is a dickhead, I won't defend that. He bullies Yuri to an excessive degree, and half the time he's self-projecting his own insecurities on the poor girl. Not to mention, he completely writes off second best girl's death, which is unforgivable. But he's far from the biggest prick in the game. What about Effie and Sod? They do nothing but chat shit, and we're meant to feel bad when they die. Yeah, fat chance. Dong Bake, Dong Rang, Cromer, all these characters cause actual trouble and harm to the sinners, but they don't nearly get the same amount of ire. Why though? Why does Hopkins get the hate? Is it because he's the one who survives? Who knows. But we are getting an Effie and Sod and Yuri announcer in Kanto 5, so here's hoping for a Hopkins and or Aya one. Also, please don't get the message of this video wrong. You're allowed to hate characters. I'm not your dad. I'm not telling you who you can or can't hate. The reason I made this video is to just clear the air around this character a little bit. I feel like there's a little bit too much misinformation when people tear into Hopkins' character, and I really love him from a writing standpoint. So because of that, I hope I could lessen some of the vitriolic hate towards the guy. And a side note, I really hope he never ever shows up again in Limbus, because it would be unbelievably funny if Kanto 1 was the only time he ever appeared. Also, did you know? He's voiced by the same guy who voices Roland. Yeah, I couldn't fit this in the script anywhere, but now you know. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed, and if you hated it, then toss it in the concept incinerator. Oh, don't worry. You'll get your video real soon.